In Chicago, public schools that were once failing are being turned around.
Let's start changing our mindsets. This is not just Lewis School of Excellence. This is the Lewis School of Excellence. This is the positive school. This is a place where you will come, you will get education, you will meet positive people, you will have friends, teachers, staff members that not only work with you, but they help you succeed in school and in that level out of school, whether it's sports. You have that family atmosphere and that family culture that most schools don't provide, and no schools outside of AUSL have I ever seen provide the type of climate and culture that AUSL brings.
I'm Kim Clark.
And I'm Pat Werhane.
We go out into the world to look at everything.
Topics such as food deserts, wage theft, and recidivism in jails.
Access to healthcare, education, welfare, major issues we face at home and around the world today.
Come search with us for answers to these issues and more
as we discovered new answers to today's big questions.
For years, Chicago has been working on improving its public schools. While we've heard about public school alternatives, such as magnet schools and charter schools, there are two organizations you may not have heard about who reform existing Chicago public schools. The Academy of Urban School Leadership, AUSL, and Strategic Learning Initiatives, SLI, are each developing turnaround models to reform public schools.
So extreme makeovers, when they come in and they make up, remodel, restructure everything, turnaround is just like that. It's an extreme makeover. They bring in new principals, new teachers, new curriculum sometimes, and just a new structure and organization of the school.
There are so many different pieces to the puzzle when you're talking about success. Pulling those pieces together is often the most difficult part of the task.
We spent time at the Lewis Elementary School in Chicago's Austin neighborhood for its first year in the AUSL program.
We wanted to focus on how the AUSL experience impacted teachers, staff, and parents.
Everything is new and improved, and most things are different.
But it's the same students.
Same students, new staff, same students, new rules, lots of structure, organization, high expectations.
All of AUSL schools are Chicago public schools. We partner with the district to turn around their lowest performing schools, but all of our schools are run by Chicago Public Schools principals and led by Chicago Public Schools teachers, who are also union teachers.
So all the teachers and principals are unionized, is that correct?
That's correct.
Well, now how was it coming in to this school? I was thinking particularly for the middle school, the 6th, 7th, and 8th graders, because they had been in this school and another culture for 5 or 6 years.
Right.
So how did you manage that part?
Really making sure that you work with your staff to build relationships with students, because even when they're in middle school, relationships are especially important.
We will bring you everything you need, but you have to make the decision that you're worth it. They have to feel like they deserve something better than what they've received in the past.
Growing up here, coming from a student to a parent with a child that goes here, it's kind of like I see the change every day, and I hope that everyone else does. Since it's been around, the violence has dropped significantly. I mean, I've been a victim of violence. My car was shot at last year, July, and it was the students just standing outside the house. We couldn't come outside and just sit on the porch because it was always something different going on every day as far as violence was concerned. And now I don't have to worry about that. We come out, we could run around the school if we want, we could go to the park now. When we go somewhere, she pulls out a book, she's like, my teacher told me this word, and she picked up my book and she's like, Mommy, I know what this say. And I said, what does it say, Coria? And she goes and she read it, and I was like, read some more. You gotta keep reading it. She's like, I love to read. So I'm like, okay, let's go. Let me go talk to Miss Lorente. And that's exactly what I did. I went and spoke with her, and I was like, Miss Lorente, did you know Coria could read like this? And she's like, oh yeah, let me show you the chart. And she takes me over there, and she's like, do you see the level she's at now? Because coming in, she was all the way at the bottom, just along with all the other students, and going up and passing the D level, and oh my goodness, it's amazing. I love it.
Ms. Lorente is a graduate of AUSL's training program, which is a foundation of the AUSL model.
This is my first year with my own classroom. So I was trained through AUSL at National Teachers Academy. So last year, the whole year, I was with the same classroom and I had my mentor. Actually, my grade level partner was also in the room trained with me. So it's nice because we had that experience together and we know kind of how we work together, how we plan together, our opinions of different things. And so that was really nice when we were able to come to the same school and continue working together.
Yes. It taught me a way to approach teaching that is not only successful for myself but for the students. I've seen teachers here, math, science, language arts, social studies, be able to bring a relevance to why we are learning this, that you need these skills for life.
Looking at them now, like, wow, they're much more prepared than I was when I look back on my experience. They're coming in with a higher level of knowledge where I acquired the knowledge because it's needed to be an effective teacher.
A high percentage of them have had no experience in schools, and most of them don't have education degrees. But they have at least a 3-point grade average. They're graduates of a college in good standing. That number has increased every year.
I didn't realize you were training so many teachers. That is astonishing.
Yeah.
It's very important.
Yeah.
And it's expensive.
Yeah.
One can say it's expensive, just the sheer outlay. But in terms of societal needs, it's nothing.
No, it's nothing. No, because the long term is
right.
Because otherwise, the long term is bad.
If someone had reservations, I'd let them know that like everyone has really worked hard, and every teacher in that building wants to be there. It's not just a job that they've been doing over and over. Everyone's severely interviewed. You have to pass. Like, they are selected and they want to be there.
We're building on everything that the residents learned in their year under a mentor, and they're now putting that into practice.
Basically, I provide one-on-one coaching to teachers in our turnaround schools. All of my observations have a focus, so we, I guess, circle back our focus with whatever we last talked about. So let's go back to the objective for a minute.
Okay.
So use phonetic spelling to write a complete sentence. I saw students counting fingers, counting words. Jason was chopping bananas, you know, to figure out how to spell it on his paper. However, when I asked students what they were working on, they were able to tell me that they're writing about their favorite fruit. When I asked them what the objective was, what do you think their response was?
To write a sentence.
To write a sentence. A couple of them were like, what's that?
Yeah.
You know, kind of like, I mean, that's a really big word.
Yeah.
Like objective.
Yeah. See, yeah, I say focus. Our
focus is
this today. So that might have, thrown some of them off.
Okay. Even if they use the academic vocabulary, as long as they know what it means. Exactly, that's perfect. But I'm okay with them saying, you know, kid-friendly, I need to use my letters to sound out, you know, how to spell words in a sentence.
Right. It's always nice to have someone to like bounce ideas off of or just give you feedback, because especially, you know, in teaching, you always have to like change things and always be growing.
It'll be interesting to see what happens next year to watching these. Will you teach kindergarten again next year?
Correct.
Yes.
Yeah.
To see what happens to them in first grade.
Yeah, I am excited to see them like go through the grades and like to see them in the halls and talk to their teachers to see how they're doing.
Yeah, wonderful.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. This is terrific.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Really just, I went to a rather drab grade school, so this is not drab. This is exciting.
It means a lot to me because not having to get up at 6 in the morning to take my child all the way somewhere else for a better learning, that's amazing, because it just so happened that when the school opened back up and, you know, it's at USL, my car had broke down. And so I was like, well, that's good you weren't going to the other school, because you would have missed so many days. And since you're right across the street, we just walk right over there, no problem. You get the same, actually you get better learning. At first I thought it was going to be the same learning, but I realized quickly that it's not. It's better than the school that I was going to be paying for her to go to. It's best if she stays at USL, and I feel that a lot of parents, I actually would hope that a lot of the other schools would close down that's underperforming.
At Lewis Elementary, we saw how the staff made sure that students took responsibility for their behavior and that everyone cultivated a culture of respect.
Without respect, you really do not have a foundation. Sometimes respect is the base, you know? We all, especially as adults, you will work with people, you will encounter people, you will go through life having to deal with people that you may not like all the time. And that's what we want to teach them. Life is not always about what you like to do, and especially as a kid, we only do what we like to do.
I talk to them like they're adults. So I explain things. Like right now, like I'm not happy with these choices because, you know, and I explain. But I also hold them, yeah, maybe to a higher standard because they've shown me they can do that. And so when they don't, we'll talk about it. And, you know, like I know that you can do this. So it makes me a little sad when you don't do it. I think it's important that they hear that though, that like, you know, she knows I can do it and, you know, she's right. Like I've shown her that I can do it, so I know I can do it, so I should consistently be doing that.
Everyone is treated on the same playing level, and that's what I love, because when you have respect throughout a building, that's what kids start to watch. They all respect each other. They may not all like each other, but they respect each other, they honor each other, they talk to each other the right way, and that's what kids start to pick up on.
And again, that goes back to like the holding them to their standards, holding them to the expectations, and that consistency that at all times you need to be showing your best and doing your best and being your best.
I think they did today while we were talking, they'll say like, I respectfully disagree, or they'll show the I agree signal. And so that's just like accountable talk. And so we have some anchor charts to remind them of how to use their accountable talk. Our class rules, examples of how you should be actively listening at your seats, how you should be actively listening on the carpet. And today I introduced them to the feelings one before you guys came in.
Yes, they were working on that. But you got lots of hands up. I thought that was terrific.
They like it, and they know it, so it's good.
Yeah, it's wonderful. It's fun to watch.
AUSL reforms schools by removing the faculty and principals.
Well, what happens to those teachers who you don't incorporate in your school? Suppose I've been teaching there for a long time and
all of the teachers can reapply, and some do. And in some cases, AUSL, with a taking over a turnaround school, will keep some of them. My take on it is that many of those teachers have found spots. Most of them have found spots.
The Strategic Learning Initiative is a turnaround program created by John Simmons. It takes a different approach to school reform.
Some people think that you can only change what's happening in a school if you remove all the teachers and the principals. And they've proven that they can change the school doing that. We just think that process is only one of two basic ways. We prefer to work with the existing staff and principals. We find that that's much more cost effective because these men and women have 10, 15 years of experience plus relationships with the students and the parents.
The school was probably at about its lowest peak. It was on probation, on the academic watch list, and actually about to be closed. I came in and just began to put some strategies in place to actually put the school on a trajectory for success.
And we know you were successful. That school's been cited as one of the best elementary schools in the Chicago public school system now.
When you're talking about success, pulling those pieces together is often the most difficult, part of the task. And many of our teachers at that time were at a very low point. When your school is kind of targeted as being non-successful, then the students are also at a very low point. The parents are distrustful. They don't know what to think. They want the best for their children, but they don't always know how to go about, getting that.
So you take away the fear and you encourage them.
And make sure, as a parent, for example, that they're getting the kinds of skills they need.
SLI works closely with parents, students, and the existing faculty to revitalize the school's management system.
So what we do is to take those ideas of what they want to be doing and then talk to them about some of our experiences in helping other low-performing schools in Illinois elsewhere in the United States.
The people who don't blame the teachers and the principal will often blame discipline. So in other words, the children themselves or maybe their parents or parent. There seems to be sort of basic chaos in the hall and in the classroom that sometimes overwhelms even the best of teachers. How do you address that?
Well, there are two issues here.
Yeah.
One is the techniques of classroom and school management of the children, and also their parents. They need help too. But what's beneath all this is a lack of respect for people in the lower income communities. What they are told, especially the people in the schools, either directly or indirectly because of the way they're managed. You failed. 10 years on probation or 15 years as an underperforming school. You haven't been able to take advantage of the resources that you've got. And we're going to have to tell you what to do, is the implied statement. That sets up a barrier and a relationship of disrespect.
I was at a school where there had been a number of shooting incidents in the neighborhood within, a period of several weeks. And so every week I would go into the school and I would hear about something else tragic that had happened. In many cases to students who had graduated from that school. Many of the neighborhood children were coming back to the schools for the support from the principal, and from their teachers. That's their base. And so that's the place where they feel safe and they want to try to get some understanding of the things that are happening around them. I walked into a pre-K classroom because I love to do that. I'm a former pre-kindergarten teacher. And so walked into that classroom and I would always expect to go in, maybe sit in a rocking chair and, cuddle some kids, hear their laughter, hear them playing. But on this particular day, I walked in at the end of the day and kids were just crying. And so in trying to talk to the children and trying to understand what was wrong, it just suddenly hit me. It's everything around them. They're absorbing the anxiety from what's going on at home, what's going on in the streets, what's going on within the school with, children coming back to talk about those kinds of things. So it's a lot. It's a lot for teachers to absorb and it's a lot for principals to absorb and certainly for the students.
Our work is all data focused so that the teachers get authentic feedback, the principals get the feedback from looking at that data together with the teachers and with the parents. And the children take that data the next day after they've had this little quiz. Language from my day going through elementary school, we took quizzes.
Yes.
And they make a bar chart. And this is for the first quiz, this is for the second quiz, this is for the third quiz, this is for the fourth quiz. And so about the first 6 weeks I go into a building because I like to check on how things are going. And there's a note for me to go up to seat in room 102. So I go up and it says, I got to have you see this data from the children. So she says, Jose, come over and show John what he's, so Jose gets down on the floor, opens his folder, there's his chart and his bar chart. And he says, well, here are my results. Jose, there's no bar in that first column there. Well, I got a 0. And then I got another 0. And another 0. And then I got a 1. Look, John, I made a 1. And he's trying to move the bar up a little bit. And then I got another 1. And then I got a 2. Look at that. See how high that bar is? Well, that's progress. I've never made progress before.
Wow.
So that's data. That's real data. That's data that means something to people. It's not in some statistics book on the shelf.
I got notes from kids at times that would say things like, this is the best school, or, I don't want to be absent, or whatever it was. So I think that the messages you get from the children, if they love coming to school, that's first and foremost. And so your attendance rate goes up. And then if they love going to school and your attendance rate goes up, then they're there to get the instruction. And so, your achievement starts to go up. Just highlighting the successes for everyone. Once the teachers see that, the attendance has gone up, my data shows that my kids are doing a better job of learning, then your teachers are happy, and so they come to school. So it's just everything is just kind of cause and effect, it seems, but that's kind of how it works.
What's really important is not just a broad K through 8 comparison of all of our schools to all those schools. Those comparisons will be apt, we'll have a favorable outcome, but the key is when we take over a failed school, what happens to a kid who's in kindergarten, first grade, second grade, third grade?
Right.
And after 3 or 4 years in an AUSL turnaround school, those kids are really blossoming. They're at or above grade level. That's the key. If you take over a school and you've got 2 years with a kid in 7th and 8th grade, you'll make some progress. But remember, that kid had 7 years in a failed school.
Oh, I see. So if you start at the beginning, that counts. If you start in the middle, it doesn't count so much.
Well, it counts, but you're saying your results
I
aren't as
see.
good.
Yeah, I talked to C.J. Rogers, who's a principal of one of our schools on the south side, brand new, first year turnaround.
Yeah.
And I asked him 6 months ago, I said, what do you think, what does it really take?
Yeah.
How much time will it take, for a kid to really blossom with starting in this school? The school that he took over was a terrible school, failed school. Nobody could read. It was awful, chaotic, etc. So now you've got this school. You're making great progress. How long will it take before you'd be really pleased? He said 6 years. After having 6 years of AUSL, the kid cares.
Yeah.
The kid knows how to study.
Yeah.
We're making progress. It's slow, but we're making progress with the parents. We're making progress in the communities.
They tell us, wow, you all are here early and you're here late. Wow, and they seem to be really feeling like they're impressed with that. And so we really appreciate our parents and the feedback they give us. I have a couple of parents who are here daily, on a daily basis, to just pitch in, just help out with kids with uniforms and things like that. So not all our students have uniforms, so we alternate washing those uniforms so that every child can have a uniform, and that's important. Mm-hmm.
One parent told me, I used to walk my son all the way to the door. Now we get to the end of the corner and I let him walk himself because we have people outside. We have a visual presence. I can see you guys every day. You guys have been outside since day one on all 4 corners of the school, making sure that there's a safe passage for them. That's all parents want.
Is there anything the school could do differently that would be helpful, at least to you or your son?
Well, initially when I first came into the building, that I noticed that they did have a lot of yelling from the staff. And I didn't know whether or not the school was trying to be military or not, so I was kind of skeptical at first about enrolling my son. So, but it's better now.
So there's not much yelling now?
Not at first when I came in. It's off and on, but not a lot of it.
And why are they yelling, do you think? For discipline?
Yeah, the students, they're not following instructions.
So, but you think that's better now?
Yeah, I think so.
It's calmer.
It's getting there.
Good.
Well, we as parents, we was all getting along with each other now. But now, since Lewis has changed and become an excellent school, we're doing better now than we did last year.
Change is very difficult in this neighborhood. I mean, I've lived here all my life. I know that parents do not like change. A lot of them don't want to be involved, but that's their personal problem, And not allowing your child to go and exceed, then that's on you. But the students, it has been no problem with any of them as far as the learning, and that's the main concern. It's not too much of what the parents feel would be best, them going back to how the school was before, but it's more of what your child can do now and what they couldn't do before. How have they changed over that time? That's the main concern, and that's all that counts. I don't know if you know, but yeah, a lot of the parents had left this neighborhood like with their children, and like, we're going to the suburbs because it's better learning, and now I feel like the learning is better here. So I'm excited to stay another year and see where it's going. Last year was great, finished great for both of them. The one that's in first grade now, who was in kindergarten, Miss Lorente's classes, she's amazing. Her teacher loves her this year. Like, she don't have to tell her anything. She pretty much knows everything to do. She goes and she's excited about going to school still. I thought she probably would have lost it over the summer, as most kids do, but I did not have that problem with her. She was ready, first day of school, and every day she's been there, she's been advancing, so I'm proud of her. It's still, like, you know, there's some things, but as long as the students are coming out and you know, they have activities to go to, you don't see them standing around. What you can see for yourself, you don't see them standing around. And that's my car right there that actually had the bullet holes in it from the violence before the AUSL started. And since then, like, I don't have that problem. You know, I go and I feel comfortable. And it's like, before I wouldn't be sitting here on my porch. I would most likely be in the house. I would go straight in, actually. The school has come a long way, and I hope that this change, you know, is something that stays and they advance from that.
Looking at AUSL and SLI, it is clear that they've developed effective practices to deal with behavior and respect. These practices have had a great deal of success in turning around failing schools, and they're having an impact on test scores and academic learning. After many years of refining their models, AUSL and SLI have demonstrated that these efforts are effective for turning around public schools.